Every student you have is going to have different pronunciation issues that they need special help on. But here are some common ones based off of different languages that have different issues. So, first, we're going to start with the voiced and unvoiced. Okay. The S and the Z and the TH in General American English have a voiced and an unvoiced version. Okay. We're not talking about the letters S and Z, we're talking about the sound. Okay. So the letter S or the letter C or the letter Z can all have the S sound, which is unvoiced. When you feel your vocal cords, there's no vibration. That would be unvoiced, as in S. The Z sound is voiced. You can feel the vibration. The vocal cords are intact and they're being used, as in Z, zebra. Okay? So, in some languages where you say the number 0, they have it unvoiced, as in cero. Okay, so you want to distinguish between voiced and unvoiced, with S being unvoiced and Z as in voiced. There are many words in English that the S letter can be pronounced as a Z, okay, especially with verbs. When you're doing the third person singular and you add the S, many times it is a Z sound. And for students to be understood, they need to differentiate between whether they make an S or a Z sound. Okay. Now, for the TH, the dreaded TH, many languages don't even have the sound, much less voiced or unvoiced. Okay, so I'll have a little activity you can practice with that. But so we have TH unvoiced would be like um, depth, okay, or feather, okay, so th, th, okay, but you have voiced as in the. It's almost like a ZTH combination. So you want to show your teeth, okay? That your tongue is pressing on the TH for both voiced and voiceless, but the unvoiced does not engage the vocal cords, okay? And again, in the next section, I'll have a little activity on that to help you practice teaching that so that they can hear the difference. Okay? Other sounds, again, depending on their language, they may or may not have difficulties with these. Okay, some of these are difficulties in the spelling, some of them are difficulties in the sound, some of them are both, just to keep it interesting. So let's start with G and J. Okay, J has the same sound, but when you put it into spelling, it can change from a hard G, as in G, like garage. Okay, G as in garage has a hard G, but the end of the word garage has the soft G. Okay, so for this, we're not looking at the spelling, we're looking at the sound. Okay, so hard G would be G, soft G would be like the J, we write it as a J. Okay, it would be J. Okay, so G and J. Okay. C and K, you can have the letter C as a soft C, which would make the S sound like S. Okay, and the hard C, which would be the K, like a K sound. Okay, so you need to teach your students that sometimes C sounds like an S, sometimes it sounds like a K. Okay, and with practice, they can get that down. And you can always come up with activities to show the difference between those two. Okay, some languages have a hard time even hearing the difference between a T and a D. And with rapid English speak, oftentimes a T becomes a D just because it's easier for your lips to move, your teeth to pronounce a D sound in rapid speech. So you can have like water. Let's make that the most common problem people have. They read it and they want to say water with a T. But when you're actually speaking to someone, you pronounce it like a D, water. Okay. Like the word daughter is actually has two D's, but it's spelled with the second sound with a T. Okay, so you're going to need to differentiate between those two. Okay, and then the CH and the SH sounds. Okay, you have cha and sha. Okay, cha has a harsher sound, cha cha, like a check. Okay, and then you have SH, which is a shh, as in shush. Okay, shh. Okay, shower. Okay, as opposed to check. Okay, so some people, you might hear your students say, I need to take a shower. Okay, you need to have them work on shower, which is a much softer sound. Okay, and some very language specific problems. We have the B and the P. Okay, again, you're going to have to show your lips. B, b, and then the aspirated p, p. Okay, you can always hold your hand out. B, p. Okay, let them practice this in front of you. Okay, and you can do activities to differentiate these sounds. Okay, the J and the Y, again, that's a very language specific. Many languages spell the J sound with a Y. So you will have people say like jello instead of yellow. Okay, the Y sound may need to be practiced. Okay, and the L and the R. Again, some languages do not distinguish with the way they position their tongue. It's quite a strange phenomenon for native English speakers, but there's actually two different ways to make your R, okay? And then you have the rhotic R, as in R, okay? Whereas in other English languages, they don't have the rhotic R as in R. They have more of an R sound, a really soft, pretty kind of trill. But here in the US, we have the harsh R, okay? So when you're teaching these concepts, the key is to model them again, just like the vowels, and really isolate the differences. And you're going to have to see what your students are struggling with. Not everyone will struggle with all the same sounds. Some of them will be quite easy for them, or they just they come natural. Others, you might have to work quite a bit with them. And this is where the activities that I create really come in handy because you can just mix it up and do many different kinds of activities, just practicing the same sound. Okay. The goal here is to get them practicing, to try to make the sound if they don't even know how to make the sound. Okay. Um, for the TH, we have many classes. Well, we'll just spend 5 or 10 minutes using the TH sound. Okay. So that they're not making a Z. Okay. Or a D, like dat. Can you give me dat? Okay. Instead of give me that. Okay. So these are some common sounds. There will be others, but these are usually the most difficult troublemakers for the general American English. Okay. We're going to do some work with the minimal pair map again, this time with some consonant sounds so that you can hear the difference as opposed to the vowel minimal pair. All you need to do is make some kind of map. I just made this up with a 1 and a 2, A, B, light, dark, left, right of two different places. You can use, if you have a preference of different positive and negatives, just an either or. Just keep it simple so that it doesn't complicate the issue. You're going to want to draw it out somehow like this, and you can use the same drawing every single time. Okay, once you get a master done, you can keep using it. So you explain to the students that you start at the beginning and you're going to give them a set of 4 minimal pairs. You can mix it up and use different sounds if you want, but at the beginning, I would stick with just one sound difference so that you can really hone in on that sound. So let's start with the C or K, the hard C, which would be the K and the G sound. So for some countries, this is a very difficult sound to make the k and the g. Okay? If you're a native speaker, you're going to hear it right away. If you're not native, this could be quite difficult. So you would go ahead and put a list of 4 sets, and you're going to have a column on the left and a column on the right. So let's say you chose the KG, you could have cap, gap, cash, gash, coast, ghost, come, gum. Okay, mix it up. There's a lot. You can do cram, gram, crab, grab, creek, Greek. Okay. You just want to make sure the only difference in the word is that consonant sound of the k and the g. Okay, so once you get your list, you're going to display it for them and you're going to go over the sounds, especially at the beginning. Repeat the sounds, have them repeat the sounds. Make sure they know the difference and can hear the difference. Then you can start playing the game. So once they've met the minimum pairs and they've practiced, you're going to have the listening challenge. So you're going to read just one word from each line. Okay, so you're going to repeat it each word 3 times, sometimes more if it's a quite difficult sound. Okay, so a little hint here, choose the words beforehand. Make sure you know what they are going to be. Make sure you have them written down. It's very easy to forget which word you said, and that defeats the whole purpose. Okay, so you'll take your 4 words, and on you personally will know which words you're going to pick. You want to mix it up. Sometimes do the left column, sometimes the right column. Okay, so if you're picking, you have cap and gap. Let's say the first word, you pick cap, cap, cap. And after you repeat it 3 times, they're going to decide, was that on the left or the right? Was that 1 or 2? Okay, hopefully they heard it was 1, that it was on the left. Okay, and then you would keep going with the next words. So next words, let's say you say cash and gash. Okay, this time let's say you picked gash. Okay, that would be the column on the right, so that would be B, not A. Okay, again, make sure you've written it down. I already kind of forgot what the first one was. Did I pick 1 or 2? So make sure it's written down and that you're prepared and that you know where you end up. You don't want to be trying to figure this out live. Have it prepared beforehand. Okay. And then at the end, they should have a destination. They should have a place. So again, if you change these out, you put in places in your city or your state, or you just be creative and put other information in there. You can make it a fun, something personal. Okay. And, maybe Rebecca's house, okay, if there's a Rebecca in your class, okay? Or maybe not. You just want to keep the same one and use it over and over. That's fine too. Remember, you always have new students, so this will always be new to them. Then they can talk about it. After they pick their place, if they're not in the right place, go over it. Repeat again which words you said so they can follow along with the word and they can see why they were wrong. Okay, what word they're hearing incorrectly. And there's no harm in just repeating, repeating, repeating. So you can use that with all the different tricky sounds or any either or kind of problem that you have with listening. Go ahead and use that map and enjoy it. Here's a game that I have called a hopscotch for the voiced TH sound. I'm going to give this one to you that you guys can use. You don't have to create this yourself. You can go ahead and use mine. I'm attaching it as a PDF, but I want to give you some instructions because it can get a little confusing. So here's an example of what we're doing. We're going to be starting at the bottom and only hop on squares to get up to the top. So you're going to be starting down here and your goal is to get all the way to the top, hopping from squares, and you can go vertical, horizontal, or diagonally, as long as you only hop on a block with a voiced TH. However, there's one exception. You can hop over a block if it is in direct line with a correct word. Okay, so this is the example box. So you can give this to your students and assign that they're only looking for the voiced TH, okay, as in the, okay, like the. So in this little example grid, you would go over with the students and you would start with the word this, okay? And then you can't go to the right. With is unvoiced. Worth, unvoiced, okay? So you go up to brother with a th. Okay? And then when you're at brother, if you keep going up, that's depth, unvoiced, and think, unvoiced. So you can't go here. Okay? Worth, again, unvoiced. You can't go there. But thank, also unvoiced. However, if you look further ahead, there is a word here. Farther, farther, with a voiced TH. Remember, be dramatic, be silly. You're going farther. Okay, you have that voice in there. Farther. It's not like farther. No, it's farther. So you could go to here, here, you skip the thanks, and then you go to farther. Okay, so I've included the PDF. You can print that out, have your students practice it. Go ahead and do it yourself. It's pretty tricky. If you're a native speaker, this doesn't come naturally because you have to really think. We don't normally think about whether that TH is voiced or unvoiced. But for students who don't even have the sound in their language, it's going to be quite interesting for them. Okay? So you would start down here, as the instructions say, and you would start with this. Okay? And then you go to father. You can't go to thank or thick or seventh. Oh, I have thick again. You're going to go to those. Okay. And then go this way, together. Okay. You can't go to five. Okay. You can't go to throne. Throne is unvoiced. Okay. So then you're going to diagonal. You're going to hop to rhythm. Okay. Not going to give you any more answers. Try it. Give it a shot. And the answers are included too to make sure you're doing it correctly. Make sure you go over it before you give your students so that you're not caught off guard. Again, as a native speaker, it's often hard for me to decide whether it's voiced or unvoiced by looking at the word. Of course, I say it correctly, but it doesn't always mean I think about that I'm voicing it. It just comes naturally. So have fun.